Before we dive in, if you could just take a moment to subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and maybe like and comment, it really does help us keep this channel going. We appreciate it. Welcome to the deep dive.
Today we're doing something a little different. We're going to do a forensic analysis of something that seems incredibly simple.
It does. We're looking at a beginner's English lesson plan.
Exactly. We're not here to learn the days of the week. We're here to understand the strategy behind how they're taught.
That's right. Our source is a core curriculum for A1 and A2 learners. These are the absolute beginners, and it's all about time days, weeks, and very basic routines.
So our mission, really, is to treat this lesson plan like a kind of strategic map. We're looking for the hidden shortcuts, maybe even the linguistic landmines that are embedded in there.
Right.
What are the key things introduced at this really basic level that you absolutely need to make that jump from, say, A2 survival English to B1 functional fluency?
Well, that leap from A2 to B1, it isn't just about learning more words, it's about grammatical agility.
What do you mean by that? B1 means you can tell a story. You can talk about what happened last week. You can navigate a complex social situation. And if that A1, A2 foundation is shaky,
You just hit a wall.
you hit a wall. You can't perform those B1 tasks. So today, we're dissecting that foundation.
Okay, so let's start at ground zero then, the 7 days of the week. This is probably the first framework a learner gets.
And right away, the lesson plan hits them with a major structural rule.
Which is?
All days of the week. They always start with a capital letter.
And that's non-negotiable.
Completely. For a beginner, that might just seem random, arbitrary. But what it's doing strategically is front-loading the concept of proper nouns.
So it's teaching them that Monday isn't just any old word. It's a specific named thing, like a person or a country.
Exactly. You're internalizing a fundamental rule of English without even needing to know the term proper noun. It sets a pattern for later.
And then it immediately groups them, right, into weekdays and...
The weekend. Monday to Friday is for work and school. Saturday and Sunday are explicitly marked as no work school. So it connects the vocabulary directly to their life.
That's also where a little cultural note creeps in. The source mentions that while Monday is the start of the work week.
Right. In some places, like the U.S., you'll see Sunday as the very first day on the calendar.
It's a small detail, but it's about managing expectations, I guess. Learning that conventions can change.
It's an early lesson in cultural fluency. Okay, so capitalization gives you the writing rule, but then you have to actually say the words.
And this is where the lesson plan gets really smart, I think. It flags the pronunciation traps, the landmines.
It calls them out specifically, Wednesday and Thursday. It says these have to be mastered immediately.
Let's break that down. Wednesday, what's the trap?
It's that silent D, isn't it? The classic pitfall. Learners see Wednesday and they try to pronounce every single letter.
And they immediately sound like they're reading from a book.
Exactly. The lesson gives them the shortcut. Just say Wednesday. It's a huge step towards sounding more natural.
But the real beast, the one that I see learners struggle with all the time, is the difference between Tuesday and Thursday.
Yes. The lesson even has a warning like, watch out, not the same as Tuesday.
So what's happening there phonetically?
It's a physical challenge. Tuesday starts with a simple tet sound. Your tongue just taps the roof of your mouth. Easy.
But Thursday...
Thursday starts with the sound, the hey. You have to actually stick your tongue between your teeth. For speakers of, say, French or German or many other languages, that sound just doesn't exist. It feels completely unnatural.
So forcing them to get that the in Thursday isn't just about one word?
No, not at all. It's a linguistic inoculation. Yeah. If you can say Thursday, you can say thing, three, think, through. You're mastering a core sound of English.
You're solving a future problem before it even starts.
Precisely. The early practice is simple stuff like, what day is tomorrow? But the tools they're using to answer capitalization, clean articulation, are really B1 level prerequisites.
Okay, so that's the foundation. Individual days are mastered, but then the lesson pivots to connecting them, right? This is the A2 leap.
This is it. This is where we move from just vocabulary to actual grammar. And it all hinges on one tiny, powerful word.
The preposition on.
Yes, the rule is simple. We use on before a specific day, on Monday,
But why is that so strategic? I mean, it's just one little rule.
because it's the gateway to cracking the entire English system of time prepositions.
Mm.
You know, in, at, on.
Oh, that's a nightmare for learners. In the morning at 8 o'clock on Tuesday.
It's notoriously difficult. So by locking down the on plus day rule first, the lesson gives the learner a solid anchor. They can immediately talk about their week with confidence before they have to worry about all the other exceptions.
That makes sense. You front load the most useful part of the system. But isn't there a risk here? You've got capitalization, tricky pronunciations, now prepositions. Could this overwhelm a beginner?
It could, but the lesson is clever. It mitigates that risk by making it immediately practical. You aren't learning abstract rules. You're learning to talk about your life
So it anchors the grammar to simple verbs.
immediately. Verbs like work, study, cook, play, rest.
So you go from just knowing the word Tuesday to being able to build a sentence on Tuesday, I study English.
And that's a huge psychological win. You've described your routine. The sample sentences show this perfectly. You have, I play football on Wednesday, which is about leisure.
And my favorite, I wake up late on Sunday. That's not just a routine, that's a statement.
It's an expression of autonomy. So
Yeah.
protecting this back to our goal, B1, to have a real conversation at a B1 level, you have to be able to talk about your schedule.
Your past, your future plans.
Right. And without this on and plus day plus verb structure, you just can't do it. You're stuck with a list of disconnected facts. You need that chronological context.
And that idea of context is the perfect bridge to the final part of the lesson. This is where it expands the time horizon beyond just the week.
Yeah, now we're moving into bigger, more abstract concepts for A2. 12 months in a year, 4 weeks in a month.
That can be really hard to internalize in a new language, just dealing with abstract numbers. But the source material has this fantastic little analogy to make it concrete.
Oh, the cake analogy. It's a great teaching tool.
Tell us about it.
It just says, think of a year as a big cake,
Okay?
and the months are the 12 slices of that cake.
I love that. It's so simple and visual. It grounds the abstract math in something you can actually picture.
It makes it manageable. But the real genius of this section, I think, is the introduction of relative time phrases. This is the glue for B1 storytelling.
What do you mean by that?
Well, a learner can't tell a story, which is the heart of B1, if they can't place events in time relative to right now.
So we're talking about simple phrases like last week and next week.
Exactly. You say last week was busy, and boom, you've created a temporal flow. You're not just in the present anymore.
And there's a subtle trap in there too, isn't there?
A very strategic one. When a learner tries to use last week, they're almost certainly going to need a past tense verb. They might say, last week, I go to the party.
Which is an error.
It's an error, but it's a useful error. It immediately signals to the teacher, or even the learner themselves, that they need to work on the past tense. The lesson is forcing an early encounter with tense.
So it's almost like a diagnostic tool. It makes the learner aware of a gap in their knowledge before they're even formally taught the rule.
That's a perfect way to put it. It saves so much time later. And the same thing happens with frequency words like every day.
I drink coffee every day.
Right. That establishes habit, routine. It's crucial for describing your life, which is a key B1 skill.
And finally, the lesson adds sequencing phrases, like the day before and the day after.
And these are what turn a list of events into an actual narrative. They provide logical order. Without last, next, you're stuck. Mastering these A2 phrases is what allows you to start telling stories, making plans, and really functioning at that B1 level.
Okay, so let's try to synthesize this for everyone listening. This A1, A2 lesson plan, it's so much more than a vocabulary list. It's a carefully designed blueprint.
It is. And its success seems to hinge on, three key things we talked about. First, the mandatory capitalization of days.
Yeah.
That builds the whole structure for proper nouns.
Right. Second, that really intense focus on pronunciation hurdles, mastering Wednesday, and especially the TF in Thursday.
Yes. And third, the strategic use of the preposition in. as the key to scheduling, plus those relative time markers like last and next.
Those small details are what really power the leap from A2 survival to B1 conversation.
The source material also just briefly mentions the four seasons. Summer is hot, winter is cold, basic stuff. But you've now mastered how to schedule your life day by day, week by week.
So here's your final provocative thought to chew on. You can now anchor your routine to a specific day. But how does a fundamental shift in the season from hot to cold change the verbs and the activities you choose? How does that change the entire structure of the story you tell about your week in a B1 conversation? That's your next level to explore. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe, turn on the notification bell, like, and leave a comment to support the channel.